Good afternoon and welcome to the newest edition of Woke Wednesday, the 4th of July edition. I don't know if you can see the raccoon of freedom on my shirt, but yeah. I am off for the day on Duke's campus roaming around and thought it would be the perfect time to talk about 4th of July related topics such as freedom, patriotism, the like. And I think more than ever it's so important the disclaimer of me saying that this is not everyone's opinions. I'm not an expert on these topics. These are just things that I've thought about, looked up, researched. And I really want this week especially to be an interactive one, whether you have thoughts and opinions you want to share as an American, as an international student or person, just anything at all. Oh, yes, and most importantly of all, this isn't a history lesson. This isn't me sitting you down in a classroom and teaching you. This is just a sharing of opinions and ideas, so remember that. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the 4th of July, and even those of you who are, it's known as one of the biggest American holidays, a celebration of independence, freedom, and happiness. But on a historical level, it's the day that the U.S. officially declared its independence from Great Britain and established itself as a nation by adopting the Declaration of Independence. And of course, everything we're all very familiar with followed from there with God Bless America, the land of the free, home of the brave, all of that stuff. However, it's also associated with probably one of the most famous lines related to all things 4th of July and freedom related from the Declaration of Independence, which said, "All men are created equal." The real struggle is that this supposed equality and freedom came with a caveat, where you were created equal as long as you fell into certain categories of men. The crazy thing is that after the Declaration of Independence was written, it took another 89 years for slavery to be abolished and another 144 years for women to be allowed to vote. And that doesn't even begin to cover whether all men created equal also covered immigrants, disabled people, LGBTQ, you name it. So in truth, when the 4th of July first became a celebration, only white, land-owning, heterosexual men were able to actually take joy in the day. And again, that's not even mentioning how the celebration of independence for a nation comes so complicated when we put down a lot of the independence that other nations also want to celebrate. And yes, although that's mostly history and in the past, for many people, it's hard to separate the notion that the 4th of July that we celebrate today and all the freedom is still subjective. So of course, most of you know that when I ask that question, I'm asking it ironically because, of course, America is not the greatest country in the world. No country is the greatest country in the world. However, the question is meant to speak more to the attitude rather than the reality of the fact that people see America as the greatest country in the world, whether in the sense of being the strongest, the most developed, all these other things. Which, patriotism in itself isn't bad, but it becomes dangerous when America is viewed as the center of the world and above reproach in comparison to other countries, which unfortunately happens more often than not. Oftentimes what happens is a very bad case of ethnocentrism, where America is viewed as the perfect country, doesn't need to improve at all, and other countries need to measure up to our standard, which is untrue. It comes through in America's attitude towards anything from mission work in other countries, military interventions, economic matters, policies, you name it. On a statistical level, the only things that America is actually number one in is prison occupation and military spending. Otherwise, we're actually only the 7th best country in the world. And that's why approaching the world with the mindset that America can do no wrong and that we're the best at everything does more to help than hinder, because it doesn't allow us to grow in the areas we actually need to. So yeah, overall America is a great country, but for us to adopt the savior complex where we believe that we have to help the rest of the world rather than the other way around is dangerous. Do you think America's the best country in the world?
No, I think there's always room for improvement when it comes to the United States, especially in the political era.
Ah, yes, the American dream. Talked about in movies, books, all sorts of different things, but what does it actually mean? So the American dream really stemmed from the idea that anyone, no matter what your background is, no matter where you come from, can come to America, the land of opportunity, and make a name for yourself. This has always been a very attractive prospect to many immigrant populations and those of lower socioeconomic status, where advancement was never not a possibility. The problem with the American dream is that it supports an ideology that in many ways can only benefit a certain group of people, unfortunately those who are already established. And by that I mean that although many of the populations that were working towards the American dream were minority populations, it was really designed to benefit those that were already in privileged positions. Like how the statement, all men are created equal, from the Declaration of Independence came with its terms and conditions, there were many roadblocks set in place for those who actually wanted to attain this dream. This included everything from socioeconomic barriers to class disparities to institutionalized racism to immigration laws, things that prevented people from achieving what they wanted. Just think about how hard it is for people such as ex-convicts to war veterans to people with low education background to actually find stable jobs. And it's crazy because many people who come here looking for these opportunities of advancement only are granted opportunities that allow them to meet their needs on a day-to-day basis. And you think I'm exaggerating? Ask for the stories of any first-generation Americans' parents, family members, loved ones, and you'll see that there's truth behind it.
Because the American dream is the belief that anything can be yours if you want it hard enough. And that's not how it works. We live in a world where 1% of the population controls 98% of our wealth. How does that happen? You get to be born with want. Anybody can be born with wanting, but actually having the resources to do what you want to do is not something that's given to everybody.
Earlier, America was corporation and was founded as a corporation. The American dream existed for those who came here and then took over somebody else's land. So
Now, in truth, you know that for this answer I could speak a lot or I could speak a little, but I'm going to choose to speak wisely. It's been said many times before, but maybe not heard enough. But in truth, the one way to actually make America great again is to acknowledge that America was never great in the first place. I say that because the United States history has been laced with the pain, oppression, marginalization of so many different groups over time, in all periods of time. So in saying that we want to make America great again, we're really just saying that we want to go back to a period of time where for a certain group of people, things weren't that bad, even though they were probably bad for others. And in all honesty, I think that's kind of all that needs to be said. I mean, if America really does want to become a great country, it needs to acknowledge all the areas of growth and change that do still need to happen. Of course, all of these questions from today really do come with a sub-disclaimer in saying that America is not the only country where all these problems exist, but we are at the forefront of the world's lens.